Repairing a system in need of service. Well, who would be opposed to that? Hi, I'm John McNeil, and this is the Invest Strong Network. Welcome. Last week, I made a video on reparations, especially for Black Americans, but really for the underprivileged and underserved in our society in general. Now, this particular vid brought quite a bit of blowback, and some of it was principled, most of it was not. Now, when I say principled, I mean persons who had legitimate questions, legitimate oppositions to the idea of reparations or how it would be implemented, and not just persons who were looking to spout hate or spout anger or something like that, which there were several, right? So what I wanted to do in this particular video is to follow up the vid from last week and look at some of the principled opposition to the reparations program that I mentioned last week. And of course, I would encourage you to go and view that vid because it would set you up to understand this particular video. All right. So for most of the principled opposition, many of them, let's just keep it real, are white conservatives, right? Republicans, not all, but most. And they oppose reparations because they feel as if it is a redistribution of wealth. In other words, you're taking from one group and giving to another group, and with the implication that the group that's being given to are really rather undeserving, right? Now, in my particular set of reparations, it touched on almost every aspect of American life, and really that's what's necessary to have an effective reparations program, because the scale has been so terribly tilted over the last several hundred years that unless there's a near complete revision of the system, it's just not going to be effective enough. And so it touched on political things, it touched on economic things, it touched on social issues, it touched on medical, healthcare and medical things, education, obviously criminal justice, which was a big composition of a reparations program, and these things all would have to work together to repair the system. Now, redistribution of wealth makes up a very, very small part of this reparations program, and that was done intentionally. I am in fact quite sensitive to those persons who do not like the idea of taking from one group and giving to another group. Now, the reality is, in the world we live in the nation we live in, well, this kind of distribution goes on all the time. Whenever you make a tax payment, right, certainly on a federal level, but also on a state and local level, when you make a tax payment, that is in some way, shape, or form a redistribution of wealth. The government takes your payment, combine it with others, and then use it to operate programs that are hopefully for the greater good of the community or the society. And that's redistribution of wealth. That's what it is, right? And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, my idea of redistribution is not that there is a taking from one group and giving to another group, but more like using the resources, the vast resources of our entire society to repair the damage that has been done over the last 400 plus years of enslavement, post-enslavement, apartheid, segregation, and even the ongoing problems in the society as it relates to racial issues, right? So that's that's the nature of the financial or the economic component of it. It's about jobs programs. It's about scholarship programs. It's about mentorships and things like that. Apprenticeship programs that seek to expand skills and employment opportunities for Black, Hispanic, Native Americans, other underserved groups, and underprivileged groups historically in the United States of America. So you need not be, for those who oppose the idea of reparations, you need not be afraid of this reparations program, right? Being some kind of redistributive mechanism. It is not. It is basically designed to uplift the entire society by uplifting those who are the furthest down. And one would think that that would garner much more support than just a pure redistribution program. Now, some have said that, well, the idea of reparations are just too far removed from the triggering event. Now, obviously, the triggering event would be slavery, either through the transatlantic slave trade or just the kind of indigenous slavery that had afflicted Black Americans for some 200 plus years before it was struck down after the Civil War. But one needs to listen perhaps a little bit more closely to the idea of reparations. Again, the word reparation means to repair, right? It means to repair, not necessarily to overturn something or to be punitive for something that happened long ago, but to repair a contemporary system. And the program that I laid out last week did exactly that. It was a program designed to repair, to make the United States of America a fair, more equal, more just society. And thus, that is a contemporary mission, and it always will be a contemporary mission. So it is not about being punitive for white people, for aggressions in years past. No, it's about forging a way forward that benefits everyone equally. And again, lifting up those who have historically been oppressed. All right. Then there are those who say, well, how do we determine who's eligible for reparations? I mean, over the decades, you have descendants of slaves, and then you have free Black people. Then you have immigrants. Are we talking African immigrants who came after the slavery was struck down? Then, of course, there's mixed race persons. They may be Afro-Hispanic or Black and white mixes or Asian and Black mixes and all kind of things like that. Okay, again, that misses the point, right? The point is not a redistributive point. The point is uplifting all those in society so that our society overall can make progress, right? And so with that being the case, there's really no need to try to determine whose bloodline led directly to slavery or whose bloodline were related to free people or that. No, it's not about that at all. It's about uplifting those who have been historically oppressed and lifting them up as a group to make the entire society better, right? That's the nature of a successful, well thought out program of reparations. To be honest with you, from talking with lots of white people and those who are opposed to a reparations program, actually their opposition is really of a psychological nature, right? And it goes something like this. Historically, who's been at the top of the American heap? Well, obviously, it's the majority group it's white folk, all right? I mean, let's just be real. They're at the top. And they have, in fact, forged a society that's very impressive. I don't argue with that. I mean, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the entire structure of our government, both on the federal level down to the state level and even municipal level, very impressive, right? And so the idea of reparations for many of them comes down to a husband, right? So let's put it this way. Let's say you're a husband and you think you've worked hard to build this family and make it successful. And then one day the wife sits you down and basically tells you your husbandry is, shall we say, wanting, right? Now, in a situation like that, the wise husband says, well, oh my God, I'm sorry. I had no idea. Please, let me know how I can make things better and we'll work on it together to make it better. See, that's what the wise husband would do, right? But the natural reflex of a human being, man, is to be like, why? That witch. Can't she see how hard I've worked for her? Look at all I've done for her. How dare she tell me that my husbandry isn't up to snuff? And that's basically the psychology behind many persons who oppose reparations. They are deeply offended that someone or some group is telling them that the system they've created and perpetuated is lacking and is wanting of repair. You see, for them, that is a personal insult, right? And a personal aggrievement. Now, for those who think like that, let me respectfully call your attention to some higher wisdom. And we'll take that higher wisdom from God's word, the Bible, right? So the Apostle Paul in the book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse 7, he made the famous statement. He said, do not be misled, for God is not one to be mocked or tricked, as some translations say it. For whatever a man soweth, this he shall also reap. Now, historically, the context of that scripture is that, for evil people, they do bad things, they're sowing a bad seed, and they will reap the fruitage of a bad seed down the line. And yes, that is an accurate rendering of the context of the scripture. But also, Paul goes on to mention how this also works in a complete opposite way. So when one plants a seed of goodness, a seed of justice, a seed of fairness, then they reap a bountiful harvest of goodness down the line, right? So put this in the context of a society. So for the better part of 300 plus years, very bad seeds had been sown in the American structure, right? And we have reaped and are continuing to reap bad business from those seeds that were planted way back when. We have a precious opportunity now, right now, to plant fine seeds, seeds that will benefit, that will give us a wonderful harvest of justice, freedom, prosperity in the decades and the centuries to come. Let's plant that seed now, right? And a reparations program, a sensible, thought out reparations program, like I mentioned in the previous video, is a wonderful way of planting those fine seeds today. So those are my thoughts. And please let me know how you feel. Please comment, right? I enjoyed the comments, even from the haters. I responded, a funny thing happened. I responded to the haters, and when I responded reasonably to the haters, their entire demeanor changed. They became more thoughtful, they became more contemplative, and it was really quite interesting, right? So please comment. I'd appreciate it. Smash that like button. Always, please smash the like button if you've learned something or you found this to be beneficial. And of course, subscribe. All right. Thank you so much, friends, and good luck.